one important feature that goes to English is that it has borrowed a lot. There has been a lot of borrowing. So English has borrowed from almost all the languages in the world, because it is said about English that the sun in the British regime never set. There was no sunset in the British regime. So where the sun was setting, in most of the other countries where British people ruled, the sun was rising. So we say the sun never set in the British regime, because English people have ruled almost all the countries in the world, all over. They ruled India almost for 200 years as well. So it is said about. So Chaucer is the father of English poetry or in the English literature, and he found English as brick and left it as marble, because English was earlier in the dialectical form. It was a dialect, it was in the spoken form, and it was Chaucer who brought English to the print media, and English came to be in the written form, and there was invention of the printing press as well. That English has flourished down the ages till now, and it has become an international language. Now let me tell you about Chaucer's chief characteristics. Chaucer, he has written Canterbury Tales, which are folk tales. Actually, Chaucer's language is very easy, but the only difficulty that you will find with the Chaucer's text is that it is written in Old English. Perhaps the English was being written for the first time. So spellings are all jumbled. As I told you, Chaucer was English, but he is the father of English poetry and English literature as such. So what he did was, English came to be in the written form. So spellings from the modern versions of the words, spellings are bit jumbled. The words are misspelled, but you will catch them easily. And usually you have the final E letter almost at the end of every word, E letter. The purpose of teaching Chaucer is to acquaint you, to familiarize with you, to acquaint you with the old version of English, how English was there in the beginning. But after you read 1 or 2 pages of this poetry, you will come to know the words, the way Chaucer is writing. Here in literature, reading of the text is very important. Textual reading is very important. You have to substantiate your answer with textual quotes and textual illustrations, as well as with critical support, critical views. Which critic says what about Chaucer? How many critics, important critics, who have expressed their opinions and views and reviews about Chaucer. So if you come to the class without textbooks, you are like a soldier without arms. If you go to the battlefield to fight, to wage a war against your enemy, if you go without arms, what will happen? What will happen? Can anybody say what will happen? You will lose the battle. So a student in the classrooms without textbook, without book, is like a soldier going to the battlefield without arms. Textual study is very important. You are supposed to be giving illustrations from the text, quotations from the text, citation from the text. You have to substantiate your answer with the textual illustrations and so on. So now I am telling you about the chief characteristics of what is the importance of Geoffrey Chaucer. I tell you, Chaucer's poetry is really interesting to go through. Very interesting to go through. How come it is interesting to go through? Let me tell you one thing. That at each and his poetry is full of humor. He creates humor. He is laughing at his own expense. He is creating humor, laughter, fun, and sometimes his humor is at his own expense. It is a healthy humor. And there is an irony, a touch of irony into each and every line. While you read the text, You laugh almost at every line and at every word. So there is a humor and irony, and there is a satire. Satire is called bitter, pungent remarks in order to ridicule someone. Is a vyang, in Hindi as you called it. You are taunting somebody with good intention. It is a bitter remark in order to correct the follies of somebody. Is to ridicule someone. It is to ridicule the idiosyncrasies associated with the character. Idiosyncrasies associated with the character. Some typical features or some typical traits. You might have seen that sometimes you mimic, you copy a character, how he walks, how he talks, his gaits, how his gaits are or her gaits are, how he or she talks, and you just imitate and you copy a person. So that is known as, but here the humor is genial, Genial. Here humor is genial. Here humor is healthy, and here humor is at one's own expense. So number one, there is a humor in Chaucer's poetry, there is irony, and Chaucer's poetry is full of humor, full of irony, full of satire, full of laughter. And in Prologue there is an introduction. Prologue is a portrait gallery. Portrait gallery means is a gallery of faces. You meet one face of the other. You have several faces coming before you, one after the other. It's a portrait gallery because it's gallery full of people. And one critic has said, here is God's plenty. Chaucer's world is full of people, highly populated. It's full of people. It's full of characters. You have 29 characters coming before you, one after the other. And Chaucer is here describing these 29 characters as they come before you, and you meet them one after the other, and he is explaining their characteristics, he is describing their idiosyncrasies, their particular traits, and they represent the humanity. They represent a class. Each character is a representative of his own class. And these characters were not there 700 years ago. They are still now. Now you will ask me a question. Why are we reading Geoffrey Chaucer Prologue to the Canterbury Tales, and it was written 700 years ago? We don't read even yesterday's newspaper. We don't watch a movie which was released last year or 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Why are we reading Chaucer, who wrote 700 years ago? So there are many plausible, logical reasons for that. The one important reading for that is universality. Universality is very important because universality means it is sarvabhaumik, means it's true at all times. Human nature is same, human philosophy is same, human psychology is same. Knowledge is there. Knowledge which is now, maybe the knowledge, evolution of knowledge is taking place. The knowledge was there 100 years ago, the knowledgeable people were available 200 years ago, 700 years ago, since the evolution of human life. So human life evolves, it grows. So that is why an element of universality is there. Element of universality is there. And therefore Chaucer is true at all times. Chaucer was true at that time because he was describing the people of his age at his contemporary period, but is still now because you can meet such people in day-to-day life even now. And Chaucer is trying to help you identify, recognize these people and to understand these people. And he is laughing at his own expense. He is describing those. So